problem that we're having as a Muslim community is that we don't see the akhirah fully as being real. That I'm going to die, that this world is just a transition point, that this world, as Allah describes it, is just games and lahu, and don't be like a cow. God tells us in the Qur'an, don't be like an animal who just eats and does all these things. No, you're higher than that. I created you for a special purpose. I created you to know me. The greatest gift that you have in this world is the ma'rifah, the knowing of God. And that ma'rifah, that knowing of Allah, only comes through His worship, His ibadah. And so if that's not my goal, then regardless of what we're talking about here on an individual or collective level, it won't matter. But if I see this world as just a transition to the next, then I'm going to make sure that everything I'm doing in this life for myself and for my family is helping me in that transition. So we're trying to, cure a lot of the diseases that the Muslim community has, but it's an individualistic outlook and view that has to be cured and fixed to be able to cure the whole. Why am I here on earth? What am I doing? Is it just to get a great job that allows me to take all these vacations and allows me to drive a nice car and join a nice gym and do XYZ? No, that's not the ultimate purpose. There's a higher purpose to that. So I think there needs to be just a spiritual adjustment and an internal look as to why am I on earth? And then once you answer that question, you'll start to build your life in a way that helps you prepare for that journey. The Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi, he said it describing himself. He said, I'm just a traveler, stopping for just a short rest and continuing on. This world is just a transition point. The real world is the akhirah, and that's what really matters. So for me, in preparing for the real world, I want to make sure that I'm with people here that are conscious of that real world. And that means that I will consciously put myself amongst those who are conscious of Allah and His Messenger. That's the starting point for me. Because you're going to notice, I think Mustafa would both agree, Ghaidar and Salim, you're going to notice a major difference in your own life if you're with people like that. If you yourself is not someone who remembers Allah often, sit with someone who's constantly in the dhikr of Allah, what are they naturally going to do? Is going to make you remember Allah. Like there are some mashayikh, I remember we've been sitting in rooms sometimes talking amongst brothers. Some mashayikh come into the room, everyone goes silent. Not because you're scared of that person, but just because their presence reminds you of God, right?
Yep.
Just they have this presence that they just remind you of God. You know, the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi, they used to say that looking at Sayyidina Ali was a form of worship of Allah. Why? Because he himself was in such consciousness of God that when you look at him, you go into a consciousness of God and you start making the dhikr of Allah, which is a worship. So therefore, looking at him is a means to worshiping Allah. Who do we spend time with? Who are my friends? Where do I go out? What do I do? What concepts do I keep my ears and my hearts open to? This is a fundamental problem that we're having here in the Muslim community of America, and I'm seeing it become more and more liberalized, open, till at the end of the day, you have no religion left. You have nothing. What you're on is no different than what anyone else is on. You've forgotten God, you've forgotten the Messenger of God, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi, and you're living a life, may Allah protect me and you, that one day, maybe 20, 30, 50, 60 years will end, and then I'm going to be held accountable. And that's a scary moment. So for me, it's suhbah of good people.
I can't agree more. I think, for myself, I used to, on a personal note, get disappointed and a bit saddened that when I would leave the suhbah of my brothers, that I would find my iman and my practice start to decrease. And it really did used to depress me. To think like, what is this hypocrisy? Like you can,
just like the Hanzala.
You can do it when you're with your brothers, but when you're by yourself, so what are you? But then I kind of changed my thinking about it. And when I would read about the Sahaba who would complain to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam about when they were with him, they felt their iman increased, and when they departed from him, they felt a decrease. And so if this is something that the Sahaba felt, being around the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's not something that I should be down about, and I should, in fact, the opposite, I should be rejoiceful and grateful that Allah gave me companions that remind me of him, and that when I'm with them, that I can stay on that path. And so for me, it's the suhbah is an integral. I think in this age, we don't have to talk in circles about it. We're in a difficult age. We're dealing with difficult things. There's a lot of arrows pointed at us as a Muslim community right now. And so having that strength in numbers, the suhbah, I think, is vital.
To listen to the full episode, please visit Imanwire.com.